Over this video, I'm going to try to demonstrate the analysis of the firmware. We know that in IoT devices, we would be able to find a lot of firmwares because those would be the part of the software that would tell and how that device would behave. Manufacturer would design that all those functionalities, capabilities, but that device in its own, without a firmware, would not be able to behave and operate and use those functionalities. So let's see. I'm going to explain today how we would use a bin walk. So a bin walk would be one of those tools that we would use for so that's one, it's already installed on the Kali Linux. One of those tools that we would be able to use to extract whatever it is within the firmware. So I'm going to be on this path that I created a lot of files and I put it here that for this demonstration, so we'll be able to make the demonstration. So each one of those firmwares would not be a representation of any real environment. I just made up this for the whole purpose of this demonstration. So the very first step would be the bin walk -e, and then the firmware, whatever it is there that we wanted to extract, we would be able to do. Bin walk -e would be the beginning of everything. And this would just extract whatever is there. Why we would do those? Because most of the time firmware would come compressed in different formats. Maybe sometimes in the formats that we would not be able to extract. But we would need to get around to find, research more about that firmware, that device, and then finding some of the tools that would provide it in the Linux that we'd be able to use. So we see that it's already extracted. So firmware IT sensor bin extracted. If we would be looking on that path, so and then we will be seeing that whole structure has been extracted. From now on, from extraction, there will be a lot of things that you can do. You can check, for example, on that extracted content using some keywords and secret hunting that we use, for example, strings. So strings would be one of the next things that would be filters that we would be able to use on that firmware. For example, let's use strings on this system logs, where we will be able to grab user grep, admin key token, all those keywords, and we might be potentially found anything or not. Let's try to use on that on different structure, different file within this firmware. So that would be something like this, and if we are able to find or not. So you can use one string command, or we will be able to combine those so that you would be able to search. And you can view, of course, inspect the binary data with a hex view. So hex dump would be one of the other tools that we use. Hex dump would be that one that we would be using. For example, let's see the hex view of the whole this firmware. Without extracting, we would be able to see, and that would be viewed. And either we would be diving on the offsets of the hex view, or we would just have that ASCII code that we want to investigate further. So that would be something that you would be looking. All the time generate hash for chain of custody. So we want to use that mechanisms for protection and maintaining the integrity of the evidence. So whenever this evidence would be handed over to someone else that would transport to our lab or to our member of a team that would do further investigations, we want to make sure that is intact and was not tampered, altered, or changed. But let's just assume for a moment that we have downloaded firmware for analysis. I use this example of OpenWRT. So this is one of the firmware within those routers that is provided. And that's one, let's see that if we wanted to extract this one and see what kind of structure it has. So this would be, again, bin walk -e, that this would be OpenWRT, that would be, and this would just extract. So the beginning would be extraction, and that would extract that whole structure. And let's see how that would be seen. So cd OpenWRT, so that would be, and this would be that whole structure. It would have much more extended structure. So it depends on the device. So this would be the typical firmware that we would be investigating. For example, OpenWRT router that would have this firmware, and then we would be able to extract whatever would be those evidences that we wanted to have and the leads that we are following for this investigation. So you would pick a source and that you would need, and then you would download that firmware files into your workstation, and then further would be engage using the bin walk on the Linux. That would be one thing, or the hex dump. That would be one tool that would allow us to view that hex raw binary data.